Good morning. My name is Mary Collier. I'm the Professional Development Program Manager at the Ontario Museum Association, and I would like to welcome you to Twitter 201 this morning. As an organization of provincial scope, the Ontario Museum Association recognizes that its members and community live and work on the lands and territories of Indigenous peoples. Toronto, where the OME offices are located, is the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, Haudenosaunee, and the Huron-Wendat. This territory is part of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement, an agreement between the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. And this territory is also covered by the Upper Canada Treaties. So as you participate today, we invite you to reflect on the land that you are on, who the traditional keepers of the land are, and what the treaty relationship is, or if you're on unceded territory. And we wish to express our gratitude for the resources we're using and pay respect to the rich and ongoing Indigenous history of what is now Ontario and Canada. So thank you so much for being here this morning from wherever you are joining us today. And I hope that everybody is ready for another great conversation. We had a wonderful webinar last week with Laura Pearce about sort of the basics of Twitter and how to use it to engage with conversations that are happening out in the larger world. And so this week, we are very lucky to have Laura back with us. We get to learn a bit more about how to increase engagement and reach. So I am very pleased today to welcome back our speaker, Laura Pearce. Laura is a strategic and innovative marketer with more than 18 years of experience in digital and multi-platform brand, product, and performance marketing. She's currently the head of marketing for Twitter in Canada, where she specializes in real-time content and conversation-based marketing, helping consumers and advertisers get the most out of Twitter. So according to her Twitter bio, she is a career marketer and avid tweeter who loves books, TV, skiing, running, tennis, and she is a world-class shopper and mom. So thank you so much for being here again today, Laura, and I will pass it over to you to get started.
Great. Well, thank you for that introduction. Hello to everyone. If you were here last week, thank you for coming back. If you weren't here last week, I'm going to give a very quick recap. But as Mary said, it's been recorded and I will be providing the materials as PDF documents if that's of interest. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. What's going to happen today, I'm going to do a bit of presenting from slides, and then in a risky move, we're going to go live to Twitter and I'm going to show you how to do a few things. So you'll have to bear with me and understand that it's sometimes imperfect when you go out into the live environment, but we'll see how it goes. So here we go. Okay, and then someone say if you can't hear and you can't see. But this is 201, Twitter 201, so let's get started. So you've heard about me. You can tweet me at @Pearce or find me on LinkedIn if you want to connect. And last week we talked a little bit about what the difference is between Twitter and other social networks and how you should use it differently. So I'm just going to do a quick recap of that. Twitter is what's happening in the world and what people are talking about right now. And actually the #1 reason that people come to Twitter is to see and talk about what's happening. So when you're thinking about how you approach Twitter, you need to go in with that mindset, is that if it was the Grammys on Sunday, which it was, people were talking about Grammys, they were talking about Beyonce making history, and you may want to join some of those conversations as they may be relevant to you, or just have a sense and understanding of what other people are talking about on Twitter before you jump in. And we talked a little bit about the difference between, well, let's just have a quick look before I get to that. But so we talked a little bit about how that shows up. So last week we saw, I think, the Harry and Meghan stuff. It was a big week for the Grammys. Actually, we saw the conversation around Grammys increase by over 15%. So Trevor Noah is the host. He was really great. If you missed it, he's got some funny moments, and there he is sort of coming onto Twitter. Twitter is a very personal platform where people feel connected. So he's saying thank you. The memes, of course, are always the best part of Twitter. So the same energy for Harry Styles meme really did well. And then Beyonce made history as the winningest female in Grammys history. And so there were lots of great memes of Beyonce, frankly, with the truth sinking in. And then our very own Katranada, he won an Oscar, a Grammy for his album Bubba, and so he was reminding people to have a listen, and we were cheering him on from Twitter Canada. So that's what was happening in the world. Some of that Grammys conversation is continuing, and other things that are going on the platform, we can talk about it. And we talked about Twitter being real time. So it's that in the moment, what's happening right now aspect of Twitter that is so interesting, and you should be trying to think about how that plays into what you're doing on Twitter as well. And then we talked about look at me versus look at this. So Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, they are much more look at me platforms. So here's what I'm up to, I'm on vacation, or this year, not many people, hopefully. Here's what I'm eating, here's what I'm up to. You know, here's my dog on a walk. And that's fine, because that's a closer circle of friends, and they're probably interested in what you're doing. But when you go out onto Twitter into a broader world, you want to think about, look at this. What are people talking about? What are people commenting on? It's Women's History Month, so there's a lot of conversation going on around that. And how can you join into that conversation? And I think one of the things that I said last week was that you can use the same content on Twitter that you use on other platforms, but you need to position that content differently. So think about how you might make something more relevant to people on Twitter of what you've shared. So if you've shared a photo collection on Instagram, because Instagram is great for that, how could you connect that photo collection to something that's going on, or how can you show it in an interesting way? We're going to talk about threads today. They're great for photo collections. Photo collections are great for museums, so we'll see that play out in a little bit. So just a reminder. And then one thing I didn't say last week, and I wanted to give people the space, is that if you have really restricted resources, you should not feel like you have to be on every social platform. I think it's more important to do it well than it is to do a whole bunch of things. You don't have to tweet multiple times a day. You should, though, have a regular cadence of tweeting and capitalize on key moments. But if you look at Twitter Canada, we don't tweet every day either, and neither do some of the other Twitter accounts. So you don't need to feel compelled to tweet all the time, but you should have kind of some sort of schedule, so that you shouldn't go weeks at a time without tweeting anything out. And you shouldn't only share sort of informational news about hours and sort of functional things on Twitter. You should be joining and having a bit more fun with it. So, but I do want to give people a pass to say you don't have to be on every platform. In fact, it might not work for you if you don't have the resources to do it well. And then we sort of rounded out with Twitter is where you build cultural relevance. And that is sort of the key to getting followership and driving engagement on Twitter, is kind of becoming more culturally relevant. You don't have to be culturally relevant to every single thing that's going on in the world, but to the people that matter to you. So think about, if you were at a cocktail party as your Twitter account, what would you talk about? Who would be there? How would they want to interact with you? What interests would you express? And try to think about that as a sort of an editorial strategy for your Twitter account. Last week I showed you the top convos on Twitter, and we talked about, don't be worried about politics sort of overtaking. Yes, politics is on Twitter, but it's certainly by a long shot not the biggest conversation. And then actually the next week we had for one of the first times since the pandemic, entertainment overtake politics into the #1 spot. That was in big part due to the Meghan and Harry stuff. And then we're seeing that come through this week again with the Grammys. So as you can see, it just depends on what's going on in the world. Entertainment is big right now. So some people asked in some of the questions, what's the demographic? So I thought I'd just make sure to cover that. And this is a look at demographics in terms of how we compare to Facebook. So dark blue is Twitter, or Twitter blue, we like to call it. And then the lighter blue is Facebook. And not surprisingly, we're going to over-index in the younger demographic, and Facebook's going to over-index in the older demographic. And then we're going to be pretty evenly split through the middle in that 25 to 44 age group. And then a little bit more male, but not substantially. So that just gives you a look at how we settle out around demographics, because I think that was an important question people had. So last time we talked about tools. We're going to talk about some more tools. This is tools to measure and drive engagement, which is a little different than what we talked about last time. So let's get into it. Maybe I'll just stop, Mary. I did see a Q&A icon pop up. Is there a question that I should answer before we get into this next part?
No, not just yet. We're good.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's talk about Twitter moments. What are Twitter moments? How do you see them? And what you should do with them? So Twitter moments are collections of tweets about a single topic. They can appear in the Twitter Moments handle. So we have a Twitter Moments Canada handle. If you're not following it, it would be a really great follow for you because it'll keep you up to date on everything that's going on with a hint of what's happening in Canada. So the Moments handle will tweet about things that are happening in the world because of course Canadians do care about things that are happening outside of Canada, but it's probably the only handle, Moments handle around the world that will specifically cover Canadian things that are happening. So it's a great follow, I recommend it. And then what happens is they usually give you a little summary like they've done here with the Oscar noms. And then below you can click, it looks like it's going to be a website, but it goes to the moment, which is a collection of tweets about this topic, in this case, Oscars. And if there's any video like there is here, it will be embedded here. So it's a very handy way to get up to date on a single topic. And then moments also appear in the Explore tab. So last time we talked about the Explore tab, which is the magnifying glass at the bottom of your app. And big moments will be in that Explore tab. You will get moments that the algorithm thinks are most relevant to you. So I might get Beyonce, you might get something else. But this is the moment around Beyonce becoming the most decorated woman in Grammy's history. So that's how they work from a Twitter perspective and how you use them to get informed. So let's, and I'll just let you see that as you scroll down on the moment, you can see all of the different tweets from different handles. So it's a collection of tweets from any handle across Twitter. It doesn't have to be just from the handle that's publishing the moment. So it's not a retweet, but it's in that zone where you kind of draw things. And you can see in this moment, you know, it starts out with kind of the news, and then it gives you some context from what happened previous to that. So that's how moments work. Look at those earrings, by the way, also. Those were quite fascinating. Anyway, okay, moving on. So how do moments work? Well, moments are curated by Twitter in 16 markets around the world. So we do have a very comprehensive system. They are an editorial group, so there is a separation of, you know, church and state in that, you know, we as a marketing team don't get involved in what moments are created by the moments team. So they are truly objective and based on the data around what's trending. So you can really trust that if they've done a moment on it, people are talking about it. We operate in 5 languages. And the curation team is a 24/7, 365-day a year operation. This is one of the ways that Twitter uses its global structure really well. So people in Australia do the early shift, so everything that's happening first thing, and then they kind of go around the world so that people in time zones are covering the different things that are happening on Twitter based on when they're awake and how that's working. So it is quite comprehensive. And we've been doing this since about 2015. So we are getting pretty mature and have ironed out a lot of the sort of early challenges to curating what's on Twitter. And being honest, sometimes it's not an easy job. So we have a lot of respect for all the people that spend all their time, you know, talking about everything that's trending on Twitter. And they're the best people to have as friends because they know everything. They do connect with a millennial audience, our moments. So 60% of them are under 25 years old, people interacting with moments, and 84% are under 35 years old. So if we looked at that demo from earlier, we do well in that key demographic, in that 25 to 44, and moments in particular, this age demographic is particularly interested in what's trending, and moments kind of deliver that. So making moments. I'm going to talk a little bit about this from a big picture point of view, and then we're going to go out, and I have started a moment. I'm going to show you how to do it. This is where it's live, so you'll excuse if things don't go as smoothly as slides. But why should you make moments? So they do give you increased engagement because you might not get as much engagement as you'd like on a single tweet, but a collection of tweets around a topic that people care about can get increased engagement and show your tweets as well as other tweets. You can reach a new audience because people, if you pull in tweets from other handles, you can get audience from those handles, and you're able to organize tweets from your handle or from other consumers. So again, back to if you have a collection that you're showing off, a moment is a great way to showcase everything that's in the collection and maybe pull in tweets from people who've seen the collection that think it's fabulous. So it's a way to kind of create, it's like a mini website on Twitter if you want to think about that. And then you can pull in real-time reactions. So as we said, as people take in your collection or do something with your museum, if they're commenting on it, then you can pull that in and show people how you're getting, what kind of response that you're getting. And really, what do they do? Well, they take people behind the scenes. So you could take people behind the scenes of how an exhibit or a collection has come together, and that's interesting. They could tell a chronological story. So if there's history that you're trying to show, you could show that with a series of tweets and build them into a moment. They do provide a rich experience because you can have tweets with GIFs, you can have tweets with video, you can have tweets with just text tweets. And so they do use multiple tweet types and can be more engaging than just a single tweet. So those are sort of the whys of moments. Here's sort of a few moments that I think are good examples. So moments capture and contextualize conversations. So here's the LA Times. The Oscars made history with their nominations, and here's how. And then the tweets that are in this moment are going to take people through how they've made history and what's going on with the Oscar noms. So again, a great way to really get up to date. This is Bloomberg. They can also develop a narrative that have a in beginning, middle, and end, which is often handy if you're trying to tell a larger story. This is about Canada's housing bubble. And then they can include various perspectives and visual media types, just as we talked about. So the 11 most outrageous moments from the Grammys, always a fun moment from Thrillist, obviously a site that specializes in lists, but you get the idea of kind of middle, Bloomberg, really informative, LA Times kind of calling out a single important piece of information and then contextualizing it, and then Thrillist just kind of fun stuff that you don't want to miss. So, you know, Twitter Canada might do at the end of the year, we did a moment of all the best tweets of the year because we want people to be able to see that. So that just gives you a sense of how this works. So before we go to threads, I'm going to go back and I'm going to come out of here and we're going to go here and I'm going to show you how to make a moment. So I am hoping that everyone can still see that. And if there are any problems, Mary, you'll let me know. I'm going to make this as big as possible for people. So this is my account. You're going to click on this more button and you can see here that there's this moment. Moments always have this little lightning bolt beside them. So you're going to go into here. I started this moment. You can make moments private. Obviously, if you want your customers and consumers to see them, you want to make them public eventually, but I usually start out by making them private. And so you go in here, and the way that this works, and I'm going to start from the beginning. If you've already started a moment and saved it, then up in this little ellipsis here, you go in here, you can delete them, you can edit them, and you can also view the analytics. So after you make a moment, you could go in and see how it's performing here. But let's do edit this. So I called this moment daylight savings. I was doing it yesterday. I was feeling particularly tired by the Monday, the daylight savings. And did you know it was National Napping Day as well? So it all came together. So what you do is you're going to give it a title, then you're going to add a description. So, you know, we were all feeling tired on the first Monday of hashtag daylight savings. You should always use a hashtag if you know it's trending, but you know, we're also glad for a bit more sunshine in our lives. Okay, so descriptions should be 1 to 2, maybe 3 phrases. You want to keep it tight. It's still Twitter, so people want a very quick, snappy way of looking at things. This is the image I used. As you know, it's been circulating a lot, but you can go in here and you can upload a photo. So I'm going to go here. This is my photo. I'm going to show this as a list, and I did put one in here called daylight savings, but sometimes you can't find it very well, which is of course Murphy's Law. Here we go. So you need to think about what images you want. Be aware that you shouldn't be using images that you don't own unless they're in very, very sort of regular use on Twitter, or you can get them from the Twitter Giphy library, which allows you to use things on Twitter. But just be aware, you know, images of celebrities can be touchy. If you don't have a really high profile account, I wouldn't worry too much about it, but that's just something to be aware of. So I've uploaded this image. Here we go. So what happens is it's going to show you how it's going to appear. So in this case, I want to move this over so that I get the coffee spilling on the counter, and I go to next. And this is then what it's going to look like on mobile. So this is a slight challenge here. So sometimes you have to kind of fiddle around with your images to get the right picture of how you want them to look. So in this case on mobile, you know, I'm not going to get necessarily the coffee in, so I could sort of go like this. And then that's my cover media, and you can crop and you can change it at any time. So I added this tweet from Twitter Canada, which was a fun little meme. This is a very popular meme, this handshake meme. So two things coming together to make something else. In this case, it was Monday, Daylight Savings Time, and National Napping Day. That's the first tweet that I've added. You can add tweets to your moment. So what happens is it gives you tweets that your account, the account that's creating the moment, has liked. So this was really funny about this dog who the cat stole his bed. This is a friend. So all these tweets that I have liked recently are here in this moment. Here's the Oprah meme, normal people with ads, marketers. I thought that was pretty funny. And you can just keep, so this is a great one. This feels reminiscent of jet lag minus the joy of travel. So I'm going to add that to my moment. Here's Simon Ostler saying, good morning and happy Monday. Can we stop changing the time? I'm going to add that to my moment. This is someone replying to me. Here's someone, thoughts and prayers to parents and educators. So I can just go through here and I can choose things that I've liked. Now we're getting into my Grammy stuff. So there we go. We can also, let's go back up, tweets by account. So let's say I want a moment from Twitter Blackbirds. I can go in and I can see the tweets that from their account and I can choose them. So you're always choosing them by this check mark. So I can also search a tweet or search a hashtag. So I can go in here. I'm going to look at tweets under the Daylight Savings Time hashtag. This is a funny one. You know, me thinking it's 2 a.m., me realizing it's 3 a.m. now. So I can choose to include that moment or that tweet. And maybe I like this one too. And then you also, if you had found tweets previously that you liked and you have copied the link to that tweet, you could put that in as well. So then what happens is you can see that these are the tweets in your moment. You can change the order of the tweets. So I can make that tweet first, I can make it second, I can move it up and down, and I can look at it and be like, I don't really like that tweet, I can take it out. So that's how it works. And then you can either finish later if you're waiting for other tweets, or you can publish the moment. Publishing the moment doesn't mean you're tweeting it. So I'll publish this and then I'll get rid of it. Take a moment to make this moment look best on mobile, crop these images. So it gives me a little bit of a tip because the desktop view is different. So I can say, yes, go ahead and crop these images. It's going to give me options. So maybe I want, no, I need his face. So I go here. This moment we made publicly available and listed on your profile. You can always publish it, unpublish it, or update it later. So I'm going to publish it. And then it gives me a tweet box. This is the link to the moment. And I can say how we were all feeling about daylight savings yesterday. And then that is the link to the moment, and I can tweet it out. I won't, because I'm not sure everybody needs to see a moment from me about daily. Actually, maybe I will so you can see it, and then I'll just get rid of it. So let's go to my profile, and you can see this moment here. And then I can go in here and you can see all of the tweets that I put in and how this is on desktop, and then it says you're up to date. And then if you go into here, you can see that this is my moment. If I decide, I could go in here and I can delete it. So that is how to make a moment. I'm going to delete this one because I feel like people might be wondering what the heck I'm talking about. And then remember, you can delete the moment, you need to delete the tweet too, because then otherwise people are going to look at that, going to try to look at that moment and it won't be there, and that's not a great user experience. So if there aren't any questions on that, I'm going to go back to the next topic, which is threads, but this is a good time to ask me any questions about that if you need to. So Mary, let me know if anything comes through.
Nothing just yet. So,
okay.
Oh, well, so you have one that's just come in.
Okay.
For a moment, would you keep adding to it?
You can keep adding to it. I would just say be mindful that if it's of the moment, then it kind of might expire in interest. But if you created a moment around exciting new pieces of art coming to our museum and you kept getting new ones, there's no reason that you can't continue to add to that or edit, take some out, and then you just need to tweet it again, because remember that people aren't going to necessarily go to your profile and open up your moments. You need to tweet it out so that people are aware of it, and that's fine. By the way, tweets don't have a very big lifespan, so there's no reason that you can't a couple days later tweet a moment again.
Okay, perhaps further to that idea, somebody is asking if you can pin a moment.
You can pin a moment. You can pin the tweet with the moment. You need to pin the tweet, not the moment itself.
Okay, great. I think we might have one more. We have a question. Would you suggest deleting a moment after the moment has passed?
I would. I'm just leaning over to get my power cords. People wondering what I'm doing. I would not delete a moment unless you felt that it was really sort of out of date. Like if you had a temporary collection and that collection is like no longer available in your museum and you wanted to get rid of the moment, I think that's perfectly acceptable. But I don't think you should feel like you have to delete moments if they're not inaccurate after the moment has passed. Does that make sense?
I think so. Thank you.
Okay.
That looks like all the questions for the moment.
Okay, so we're going to talk about threads, which are kind of like a little bit like moments, so but different. So I think you probably know what threads are. In this thread here, you can see this is, I don't know why they're going at the same time, sorry for that, but you can see that Twitter Canada created a thread. We were talking, it was Black History Month. We had introduced a number of Black entrepreneurs. And in this particular case, I started the thread with a tweet. You go and I'm going to go to my Twitter for a second. So I create a tweet, hello, and then I click this little plus button and I can add another tweet. And then I click this button and I can keep adding, and I can go here. Let's see, I can say, okay, now I'd like to add some media, but I can also add a tweet from another tweet. So just give me a sec. So let's say as part of this, I'm going to go to my Explore tab. What do we care about? Jane Fonda, she's trending. Let's see why. So let's say I wanted to use this tweet. I'm going to go here. I'm going to copy the link to the tweet. I'm going to go back. I'm going to add this tweet, and I can paste in the link to that, and that will render that tweet in the thread. And then you can see this button, tweet all. That's how I publish all of the tweets. And before you tweet all, you can go back into the individual tweets and make sure you don't have spelling mistakes or issues. I will just say one of the pitfalls of threads is that if you tweet the whole thing and then you have a mistake, it's hard to fix it because you might want to delete that tweet, but it's going to break the thread. So I would just recommend some good proofing before you tweet a thread, but it allows you to sort of get into a longer conversation. So, and then I can either tweet it or discard it. So I'm going to go back to this. So you can see in this case, we said meet 3 Canadian Black entrepreneurs. We used the hashtag love to see it because that was the hashtag we were using. And then I actually inserted their tweets into the thread. I'll let you see it again here now, so that they were showcased. So I wasn't speaking on their behalf. I was just retweeting those tweets. And then at the bottom of that thread, after I'd introduced them, or we had introduced them, we say, you know, follow what they had to say, and then we sent them to the Blackbirds account. So that's a way to do threads. Over here, this is a Royal Ontario Museum thread. I did search my museum list and found this on ROM. It's a year, 2 years ago now, but it's still a great thread. It was a thread about paintings of dogs and in the We Rate Dogs format. So that's a really clever device, is tagging a larger account into your tweets and, you know, using a format that, you know, people enjoy. And then in this case, they used Rom Goes Dutch as the hashtag for that thread, and they just created all these tweets. So it's a little bit different than a moment, but it has the same impact that you can sort of tell a larger story. I think we want you to remember that part of the reason to use threads is because even though you have 280 characters, jamming everything you can possibly say into a tweet is not a great experience. So if you have a larger story to tell, then it's a great idea to use a thread. And back to like a collection or something you want to showcase from the museum, threads are great ways to showcase photos. As you know, you can put up to 4 photos in the tweet and they come as a little tile box, but you could also put individual photos into a thread to showcase something that's going on in the museum, or you could put different information or tell a little story about a piece of art or something that's going on in your museum through a thread. The only difference with threads is that if you're using other people's tweets, you're still quote tweeting those tweets, versus a moment is going to show that tweet as it is, and that tweet will get engagement there. So if that makes sense. So those are threads. It's really quite a simple device. So I don't think we need too much more explanation, but if there are questions on threads, hit me.
We did have one question, and I guess it's both for moments and threads,
Yeah.
but are there any particular ways that people fail with these things that you would recommend not doing?
Sure. Yeah, it's a great question. I think with moments, I wouldn't overuse them because people have to be pretty interested in a topic to go in and see multiple tweets. So I would use them a bit sparingly to, as I said, like if you have a big, something that's happening, like maybe for your museum month, if there are special exhibits that are happening during that month, or maybe actually the OMA could do a moment of all the museums that are showcasing things. And that's a great way to bring everything together. Or museum associate, other like groupings of museums can do them, but I wouldn't do them for everything because you're not going to get you're not going to get massive engagement on all of them, and it's a bit time consuming. So I would use them, and I would make sure that you're including like consumer comments or tweets from other people. I wouldn't spend a ton of time doing only moments with tweets only from you, unless it's like a bigger story. So otherwise it might be, you know, a moment of all the great things people had to say about this recent exhibit or something that was happening in our museum would be a great way to use a moment. But I wouldn't over index on them. That would be my suggestion on moments. And then for threads, I would only use them when you're back to sort of like you have more information than you can share in a tweet. And it's something that people will want to follow along with. So the idea of getting on like Women's History Month and doing a thread of pieces of work in your museum that were done by women or something along those lines, that's a great way to use a thread. But also I wouldn't spend too much time. And I think particularly with threads, don't make them too long because people just don't want to read them. There's lots of people on Twitter and really obsessed with a topic and they have like, you know, a 32 tweet thread and people are like, oh my God, nobody wants to hear all this. And I would watch your spelling and your your grammar and everything because they're hard to fix because there's no edit button. And that's an ongoing topic that I'm sure I could answer some questions on later. But the short stroke is there is no edit button on Twitter. So when you string tweets together, they just have the potential to have more issues. Make sense?
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
We do have actually another question about threads.
Sure.
Joy says, sometimes it seems like threads get lower engagement than an individual tweet on the same topic. So is there anything about threads that lower your engagement numbers?
No, there's nothing about threads that lower your engagement numbers, but it's very typical for the first tweet to get the most engagement. And even if people have read the other tweets, they're not going to go and like every single tweet in your thread. They kind of feel like I've liked the first one and I may have followed along. So I think just don't be unrealistic about engagement numbers on like the 10th tweet in the thread. But if you're getting decent engagement on the top tweet, it's a good bet that people are reading through because there are visual cues with a thread. You can see this line that goes through that shows you that the tweets are connected. That gives people a visual cue that they should keep reading. And then threads are good to promote because you get a larger story across and you promote it as an engagement campaign, which I can show you when we get to campaigns. But threads are good things to promote because you get to say more and you can drive engagement against the top tweet, which typically will push people down the thread.
Okay,
Any
great,
other
thank
questions?
We did have one more question, which was how frequently should you update your tweets? And I'm not sure, forgive me if I'm misinterpreting this, but
your threads maybe?
I wonder if that's how often, yeah, should you update your threads or just how often should you tweet?
So there's no hard and fast rule about how often you should tweet. You know, it depends on what kind of account you are. But as I said, you should have a regular cadence of tweeting. So like you could tweet 3 times a week. You could tweet 3 times a day. It depends on your account. I would suggest that a museum account probably doesn't have a really big need to tweet 3 or 4 times a day. I think that seems like a lot because you're not a news account. Like the Toronto Star would tweet many times a day, but they're a news business, so they're trying to put out news. So it's a little bit different. So I would say think about that. And then, you know, you should have fresh content. Like when people go to if they land on your page, they want to see something recent. So I wouldn't leave, you know, a full week in between tweets. I think that's not ideal. Or, you know, you don't want your most recent tweet to be last month because then people will think, well, this isn't an updated account. I'm not going to follow it. I'm not going to engage with it. So I would just be aware of people are coming to Twitter for real-time information. And if your account shows like really long ago content, people won't engage with it. In terms of how often you should do a thread, I would only do a thread when you have a substantial thing to say that requires. I wouldn't just do threads for the sake of it, like that example thread, like, hello, how are you, what's going on, add a GIF. I wouldn't do that. It's not going to drive a lot of engagement and there's not a ton of benefit and it's a bit labor intensive. Hopefully that helped. So you can always come back at the end.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's go to analytics. So, you know, how do I tell what's going on my account? Well, you can go to an analytics page. This is a snapshot of the page for Twitter Canada, and it gives you tweets, impressions, profile visits, mentions, and followers, and you can see the growth in your followers. So I'm going to go back to my web, and I'm going to show you how this works. So here I am again on my homepage or my home of my Twitter. I'm going to click this now button, or sorry, more button, and you can see analytics is here. And this will show you, it always shows you a 28-day summary with change over the previous period. on this particular one. And so you can see each of the months. March is 15 days so far. You can see how many tweets I've done, how many impressions I've gotten, whether I'm up or down. Obviously, it's only the 15th of the month, so previous month is going to look better. The profile visits, my mentions, and I've gained 6 followers. You can see my top tweet. So tweeting about Meghan Markle, as was everybody. My top mentions, so people who've mentioned me, how did that work out? My top follower in terms of followership, and then my top media tweet, which was my daughter having 80s day at school. And it was a fleet that I tweeted. And so I tweeted tweet worthy fleet. I was probably trying to help people understand how fleets work. And then you can look at February and on and on and on. You can also go into just tweets. So you can see across, here's all the February back and forth, and then you can see top tweets and you can see how many impressions it got, how many engagements it got, and the engagement rate. And then on this side here, it will show you your average engagement rate. And if you have link clicks, so I don't have very many link clicks because I'm not a business and I'm not trying to send people to a website, so it's not going to show very many there. And all the likes. So, and then all the different tweets that I've gotten. You can see why this was a top performing tweet, because it had a really high impression rate, but it also had a good click-through rate. You can see that this had a really high click-through rate, but not as, just about the same number of impressions. So you can sort of decide, it's usually a combo. Even if a tweet has a really high click-through rate, but really low impressions, it means that the people who saw it really liked it, but not very many people saw it. So you want kind of a balance between impression rate and click-through rate. And you can see how that works here. And then you can also see all of the videos and other things that you've put on your Twitter. So that's how that works. So I can see the videos that I've published. If you had promoted videos, you'd be able to see them here, and then you'd see video views and completion rate on my personal accounts. I'm not publishing a lot of videos, but you might be doing it on your main accounts, on your museum accounts. So that is the analytics snapshot, and you can also change the time period for these things, and you can export the data to an Excel spreadsheet or anything else that you want. So for our main accounts, we would export the data and have a look at sort of follower trends over a period of months, and it allows you to kind of understand over time how your count is changing and improving. So questions on that?
We had one question about benchmarks. What is a good impression and click-through rate?
So it really varies. I think what you really want to see is you want to see it growing. So you should be going back and looking at your history and understanding where you're kind of netting, and then the goal should be to try to improve that. We tend to say, a 0.8 to 1% click-through rate is really strong. Anything over 1%, very strong. Those ones that you get 4%, those are great tweets. But it matters how many people saw that tweet. So the click-through rate alone isn't the only indicator. But I would just say you want to be growing notably your impressions, because that means more people are seeing it.
Okay, great. That looks like the only question for now.
Okay. Okay, let's go to the next thing. Okay, so here is campaigns. So just like in everything else, so this more button on your profile is your friend. It's where all the hidden stuff that you might not see all the time sits, and you can see that we looked at analytics. You can also choose Twitter ads, and that is where you can promote things. Now, I will just say, I recognize that as museum organizations across the country, you may have limited to no budget to promote tweets, and there's no requirement to promote tweets. However, it is a great way to expose your tweets to a broader audience and give you a little push and help you grow those impressions. And I would say, you don't have to feel like this has to be big dollars. Sometimes even on our side, we spend $1,000 on a tweet. We could spend $500 on a tweet. And the goal of doing that is just to give it a little push to go beyond your follower base a little bit and get it out beyond that. So if you had a special exhibit or something, an event happening, or for Museums Month, you had special things going on, you might like to amplify those tweets. And you don't have to spend a lot of money, and it is very easy. And the goal of that is for you to see your impression reach grow, and also to see you getting new followers. So I'm going to take you out into a campaign as well. Uh-oh, what's happening here? Okay. So this is a campaign that I've already created that exists. So I'll just show you what it looks like. Basically, this is a summary. So once you promote a tweet, you have the status of it. This is an expired campaign because it's over, the number of impressions you got, how much you spent. So in this case, it was $2,000. There was no video, so I would ignore that. And then up here, this is how the metrics work. So you can look at a summary, which tends to be just tweets, impressions, spend, results, and results rate. If your results are based on what you choose as the objective for your campaign. So if you choose engagements, it'll tell you how many of those you got and your engagement rate and how much you paid for each of those engagements. If you had a video view campaign, you would have a look at promoted video views. If you're looking at reach, it will also give you reach and frequency. So you know, impressions, cost per impression, and then tweet engagements, and then it should give us the overall reach. This one was an engagement campaign, so you can't see that, but that's how you understand what the results are. But let's go here. Let's go here. I think that I created one on my account, so let's just see. Ads manager. Oh, of course, there's a problem. Here it is. Here we go. Okay, so this is a campaign that I created a little bit yesterday, just so I could start to go into it. So I'm going to go into here. So when you go into that Twitter ads, you're going to choose, when you first create it, you're going to choose the objective for your campaign. So I'm going to just do a net new one. So I'm going to create a campaign. The first thing that's going to come up is going to ask you what your objective is. So my objective is reach. That means I just want as many people to see this tweet as possible, but I don't care if they engage with it. Video views, if you have a video. Pre-roll views doesn't apply to you because you're not likely doing this. App installs, so if you had an app and you were trying to get people to install it, you'd be able to optimize based on that. Website clicks, if you were asking people to go. Some people asked in a question about fundraising and getting people to engage with the museum. You could do a website click campaign here to get people to land on your website and your donate page, and then you can optimize to that. Engagements is the most common, which is you want people to like your tweet or retweet your tweet or like just read it. So if like you were promoting a tweet thread, this is what I would do. And followers, if you just wanted to go out and tell people you're a great account to follow. I don't recommend this necessarily because it can be expensive, because it's a pretty big ask, and you might be able to get new followers with engagement campaigns that will be more efficient. So in this case, I had clicked engagement. So if say you have a thread and it's the photos from your new museum exhibit, you'd say, okay, I want to have engagements on that. And then it's going to go into here. It's going to create that as a campaign with engagements as the objective. So I'm just going to go back into the one that I had already created just to keep this easy, unless I've gotten rid of it, in which case, no, that wasn't great. Hold on a second. Twitter ads. Okay, so this is on my personal account. So let's go into here. I can edit this campaign. So it's engagements. The campaign name is best of tweets. So I just made it up, but your campaign might be X exhibit, whatever it is. Your funding source would be a credit or debit card. So you don't have to have like a special account set up with Twitter or anything. You just put a credit card in and you can run it there. And then what we ask people to do on Twitter is to set a daily budget. And typically you don't even have to set a total budget unless you want to cap it. So let's say my daily budget is $1,000. I can run it for a day and I won't spend over $1,000 because that's the daily budget. Or I could say my total budget is $2,000 and my daily budget, I want to spend it $1,000 a day. Or I could say spend $500 a day so I can get 4 days out of it. Then you're going to go here and you can specify the start date and time. Should be paying attention to the time zone you're in. And, you know, typically you want to end campaigns kind of at the end of the day or in the evening, depending on what's going on. And then you'd specify an end time. So in this case, I might specify the 19th so that there's 4 days, it's $500 a day, and it's a $2,000 campaign. So then I would go to next. Yes, I would save my changes. So you're going to create an ad group name. So my campaign overall is called Best of Tweets, and the ad group is called Grammys. You don't have to specify an ad group, but it just makes it a little easier. This is your bid strategy. So always choose auto bid recommended unless you really understand how much it's going to cost you. So sometimes like a Twitter Canada account, we might choose a maximum bid of like 2 cents a video view because I know that I can get video views for 1 cent and I don't want to pay more than 2 cents. But if you don't have a sense of that, I wouldn't get into it. And auto bid is going to maximize kind of how this works. It's sort of like Google. It's going to get you the best engagement for the lowest price. So I would always choose that. You're getting paid you're paying on engagement, and it's going to optimize the frequency. You can set a custom frequency cap, but I don't think you need to. Then you're going to get into like, who do you want to see your account, your campaign, your gender. You may or may not choose to do that. We typically don't. Your location. So you should specify Canada, or you can specify even tighter than that. I would not recommend doing a campaign that doesn't specify country because it's going to spend through in like 2 seconds because it's too big a region. And then you may want to specify French and English or just English, up to you. But I would definitely specify those 2 things. I wouldn't worry about device targeting. I mean, if you were Samsung and you only wanted to target people using Android devices, that would make sense, but I doubt it matters to you guys. And custom audiences are, you know, people who mind their email lists and are retargeting them. So that's probably more complicated than you want to get. Then you can go into targeting features. So in this case, I put Grammys, I put music, and I put awards. So what happens is, so you can put a hashtag and it will show up and you always click this. Or I can just put her name and I can click that. And then maybe you put a couple of these and then you can click this recommendations button and it's like, oh, maybe you'd like nominees, maybe you'd like award, maybe you'd like music, maybe you'd like Grammy, because some people don't put the S on it, Grammy noms, artist of the year. So I can start to add, and the algorithm will help me to figure out what to use. So it's quite handy. And then you get a keyword list. And if you see over here, it tells you how many people you're going to reach. Being honest, the more keywords you put, sometimes the narrower the search. So if you want something pretty broad, you might just like to do 2 or 3 big keywords around the topic you're talking about and leave it at that. So maybe it's just museum month, museum, art, and then maybe you have a special type of art that you're focused on. You might think about that. But the more you do this, the tighter the targeting gets. And you may not necessarily want that. Follower lookalikes are, I want to push it to people who follow a certain person. So like, I'd like all the people that follow Justin Bieber to be able to see this, because you like Bieber, you probably like the Grammys. So you might choose other museums, you might choose other organizations, you might choose a big museum if you're a smaller museum, so that people who are following that will be more aware of your museum. You can choose interests here, so you can go into all of these different interests. And so in this case, I chose music, but you can go into hobbies and interests, and drawing and sketching, design, or you can not choose this at all. Books and literature. It depends on what you are focused on, and you do not have to choose an interest, but sometimes it helps. Just kind of tighten up your campaign. So in this case, I put music, news, and general info. Sometimes if there's a big television show that's going on that you're targeting, you can put it here. I don't think it will apply to you. In this case, the 63rd Annual Grammy Awards was a key event that was in the system, and I chose it. Then you get to choosing tweets. So it shows you your account. You can choose organic tweets, Or you can choose scheduled tweets. So if you're using TweetDeck or another publishing platform, if you schedule a tweet, you can pre-schedule also the promotion of that tweet so that when that tweet goes live, it will have promotion against it. Or you may be familiar with the term dark tweets, which are tweets that are promoted only, and you can use those. But essentially what you do is you click this. So here's me on my day, and then I can look at what the tweet's going to look like when it's being promoted. I can see what it looks like on iOS. I can see what it looks like on Android, and see what it looks like on desktop. And then I go here, I save this, and when I'm ready, I can review everything that's here, and I can launch the campaign. So I see that we're getting to the end, so I don't want to spend too much more time on this, but that is essentially the whole thing. I want to leave a couple minutes for additional questions. I know that was, it's a lot, but hopefully me showing you how it actually works versus just telling you about it is helpful. So I'm open for final questions in the last few minutes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Laura. So we have a question from Mike. How do retweets count as part of our regular cadence? How important is it to comment on retweets?
Comment on retweets, so people who retweet you, if that's what you're talking about, a really good thing to do is follow someone who retweets you, or like reply to them, hey, thanks for the retweet, because that makes them follow you, or you following them will make them follow you. So a strategy to get new followers is to go out and follow people whose accounts you think might be beneficial to you, and in an ideal world, in some cases, they'll follow you back. So that's a good strategy. If someone retweets you, it's nice to reply and say thanks for the retweet. If it's something positive, you don't have to do that to all of them. If you're retweeting other people's content, that counts in your sort of publishing strategy. So not everything that you do has to be a net new organic tweet. You can retweet things, and then your content still is fresh. And you can quote tweet things, obviously, and make comments, etc. You should also reply. So notably during Museum Month, if other museums are publishing things that are in sort of the same genre as what you do, replying to them and creating a bit of a conversation is always a good thing to do.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Do we have any last questions before we sign off? Doesn't look like it right now. So thank you so much, Laura. I think this will
stop sharing.
Really helpful, I think, especially for as we, the Ontario Museum community, are getting ready for, excuse me, Museum Month. I think as the OMA will be putting out some information about encouraging people to engage a little bit more on Twitter in that regard. So I think this is going to be really useful. And so thank you everybody for signing in today. Thank you for your participation. What's on the screen now is just a reminder that next week is our Indigenous Collections Symposium. So registration is open until March the 23rd, so please do join us if you can. And all the information for that is on our website. And so as you know, this webinar was offered free of charge as a service to the community during what are some very challenging times. If you're able, there's some things you can do to help support the OMA to continue to provide timely and accessible resources. If you're already a member, please renew your membership when you receive an email reminder. If you're not a member, please consider becoming one, either as an institution or an individual. You can find information about member categories and benefits on our website, or consider making a donation to the OMA on our website or through Canada Helps. Your support and your participation in events like this webinar make us sector, and we really appreciate each and every one of you. A slide I have up now is the OMA's homepage, where you can click on the COVID-19 resources section to access a dedicated web page that we've been updating regularly with new resources as they become available. And when you leave this webinar, you'll be directed to a short evaluation form where you can let us know how we did today and what you would like to see more of. And so I just want to give a big thank you again to Laura for joining us today and sharing all of this really valuable information with us. There's Laura's Twitter handle if you want to give her a follow and see how it's done on a regular basis. So thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.